Alright, everybody, it's showtime!
It's showtime.
It's showtime.
It's showtime!
It's showtime!
Now take your position. It's showtime.
Hey, heads up, everybody! It's showtime!
Oh, it's time!
This is the Stand and Deliver Comedy Podcast with Rhodders.
Stand and deliver!
Hello and welcome to the Stand and Deliver Comedy Podcast with me, Rhodders. We're back. Did you miss me? I am sorry for the ridiculously long absence. You probably just assumed I'd forgotten my password or something, but no, I'll tell you the whole tragic tale and where I've been and what I've been up to in a moment. Big welcome to you if you've never listened to this podcast before. My name is Rhodders. I'm a stand-up comedian, but also I am a promoter. I run the Stand and Deliver Comedy Club up above Smoking Billy's, right in the centre of Reading. And this is the podcast where I chat to some of the acts who I've had the pleasure of hosting at my comedy night. My guest today is Russell Hicks. He's, I think, one of the most prolific and entertaining improv comedians, I'm going to call him. You could watch him every night of the week, and I very much doubt, I would put money on the fact that I don't think you'd hear him repeat a joke. He improvises, he does crowd work, and he's just this, once he builds up momentum, he's just this amazing whirlwind of energy, riffing full jokes, which would take most comedians months to even write. I mean, it is extraordinary to watch him work. He's sort of a master of mayhem. He generates such an air of havoc and energy in a room. You wonder how he's going to put a lid on or finish on time. We talk about him playing, because I first became aware of him when I saw him win the Gong show at the Comedy Store. That's when audience members, if they don't like you, can hold up a card and gong you off. And the idea is it's basically like the buzzers on Britain's Got Talent. The aim is just to survive, but he not only survived, but he won it in spectacular fashion on what must have been one of the most hostile nights they've ever had at the Comedy Store. It's absolutely unbelievable. He also talks about how to win comedy competitions. Also, he talks about how he's very much a person who is quite extreme in the way he just goes, this is right, this is wrong, this is what I want, so I'm going to do it. He got fed up of his job, so got up, quit, and moved to Hollywood. Absolutely extraordinary. And he has a lot of opinions on how fame should never really be your aim. He talks about the fame monster, so that's very interesting. So he's quite purist about comedy, which is it's very interesting. And I think the most unusual thing about Russell Hicks, he just has never been on social media. He's never been on it long enough even to quit. He's aware of it. He has a phone. He has the internet. He's very easy to email. But he's not on Facebook, which I find fascinating nowadays, because a lot of my gig bookings come via Facebook. I promote this podcast via Facebook, so it's very interesting to see how he's still managing to be a full-time professional comic with virtually zero presence on the internet. He has a website and he has a mailing list like it's the 90s, and he's still a full-time professional comic. I think it might be the privilege of an act who started or became professional before social media really exploded. I think if he was starting today, he would struggle, but he disagrees with me on that, so it's quite interesting to hear that. But before we get onto our interview with Russell Hicks, where have I been? Where has my website been? In short, the Russians hacked it. I'm not even kidding here. I say the Russians. Somebody who uses the Cyrillic alphabet. So I'm just assuming here. I came to check on my website to see if it was all there, and someone had put up their own splash screen in the Cyrillic alphabet, and it looked like it was flogging mobile phones. Somebody hacked my website, which is very distressing. And I went to my host, Bluehost at the time, and they said, oh, well, you should have taken an off-site backup. And I was like, well, isn't that your job? What am I paying you a monthly amount of money for? And they very, very kindly said, oh, well, we'll get out, we can have our partners, SiteLock, clean it for you if you give us around £400. Oh, very kind of you. But it's just absolutely ludicrous. So I had a big row with them. I blasted them on social media, which is something Russell Hicks wouldn't be able to do, which achieved absolutely nothing. All I got was lots of other internet internet hosts coming out of the woodwork, circling around me like vultures and offering me their services. Like, oh, well, we'll clean your site for £100. I was like, look, just leave me alone. I'm in mourning for the loss of my website. And, of course, it's all legal, it's all watertight. Bluehost's T's and C's are there, and legally they're in the right, and I should have backed up my own site, apparently. So the moral is, don't use them, use someone better. I'm now with Torpix hosting, Torpix. So far, amazing. So that they've responded when things haven't worked, and or rather when I haven't known how to do things, that they've been very helpful. And so that's where the podcast has been. And this website hacking thing, it happened at the worst possible time. It happened during May, and during May I was called for jury service. I was stuck in a courtroom for a whole month being a jury member on a murder trial. There's only so much I want to say about it, and there's only so much I can say about it. But it was very distressing. It affected me quite terribly. It's a weird situation to be in, because anyone could be picked for jury service. You could, listening right now, you could be picked tomorrow if you're over the 18, and you just get a letter. So you're just plucked from your everyday existence, thrown into a court. And the weirdest thing is, when you arrive there's this big waiting room that's like a very big doctor's waiting room, and people are just sitting around waiting to be called and to find out what case they're going to be sitting on. And it's the weirdest thing. It's like a doctor's waiting room, but no one's ill and there's no doctors. You have like a group of builders playing Connect 4. There's like a 40-year-old English teacher sitting there on her own reading Where's Wally, and everyone's just like, it's like hanging around in purgatory. It's very, very bizarre. And you're thrown together with a bunch of strangers, and then you have to decide the fate of another human being. It's absolutely bizarre. It's kind of like being on a rather perverse reality TV show. One of the most unsettling experiences of my life. And to be honest, like, it's weird. It's like the courtroom doesn't leave you. You can leave the courtroom, but it doesn't leave you. There's this constant stress and pressure on you. And obviously it's an ongoing trial, so you can't talk about it. So there's no real release. It's not like you can go home, I had a really hard day at the office. You can't say anything about it. So there's no release from it. So it's absolutely draining. And weirdly enough, I was still booked to perform stand-up in the evening, and I didn't know if the pressure of that would affect me mentally even worse, because it was starting to do funny things to me in the end, doing jury service. I don't have depression, but I was getting symptoms of, like, I was feeling listless, I was just sleeping for far longer than I normally would, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed on the weekends, and it was just really stressing me out, just the strangeness and the pressure of it. So I didn't know if stand-up, it was either going to be exactly the wrong thing or exactly the right thing to do. Luckily, it was the right thing to do, and as soon as I got on stage and was performing gigs of the evenings, it would all just kind of melt away, and while I was on stage, I'd feel fine, I'd feel normal again. So I think comedy has kind of kept me sane, which is worrying. If something as insane as stand-up comedy was keeping me sane, then it just shows you what a bizarre situation I was in. Right, so let's now hear from our guest, recorded back in March in Banbury when we were taking part in the world's longest comedy show record attempt. And in fact, this was recorded in a hotel room in Banbury, not just any hotel, a haunted hotel, apparently. So here is Russell Hicks.
This is the Stand and Deliver Comedy Podcast.
The video I saw of you was when you took on this really, really horrible gong show. I think it might be in the Comedy Store, and the crowd, I think, had been just binning everyone straight away, and you just absolutely attacked them, and it seemed like...
Well, there's no easy way to say it. I smashed it beyond all belief. I mean, I just remember that night, like, it was like I just got to the country, and I remember I went to that show, and that show is like a beast unlike any other. I mean, the audience goes in there excited to make people hurt and fail.
This is the biggest congregation of fucking savages I have ever seen in my life. This show is incredible. Do you understand that American stereotype of English people is completely false? Everybody in America does the same impression of an English person, that posh sort of thing. Really, dude? Bullshit. Go to the Comedy Store on a Monday night. Check that shit out. Animals.
And I wasn't even actually on the bill. I had done a thing where if you show up and you just, you're like a wild card. I was like, not picked out of the audience, but they said hang around long enough, and if we have time, we'll throw you on. So I didn't know I was going on until like right at the end. And but I just remember thinking my plan was to go up and like tell them off in a funny, like bomb really hard, but on my terms. And then I remember I just started, and they started laughing, and then I just kind of wrote it, and that was it. And that was it.
Because it's like you took all their aggression and then threw it back at them, but you kept enough composure so you weren't flipping out. And I think that's what kind of made them think, well, maybe he knows what he's doing. And
yeah, I don't know, man. I just commented on the absurdity of it. Like, if I'm in a room like that, I can't experience that absurdity without calling attention to it. So I'm sitting in a room, staring on all sides at people going like gladiatorially like crazy, like it was a coliseum. Like the audience I just remember they had pints in their hands, and I was already and they're just shouting. I was already nervous because I had just moved to the country, and then I'm seeing these open micers go up one after another and just getting destroyed by this audience. You know, a couple would make it through, and then after 29 people, I just started to get really angry at the audience. So I thought, well, they're not going to get out of here without... Like, they're not... Like, my attitude is like, well, you're not going to leave having had a good time doing this. Now you're going to suffer.
it's a weird concept, the gong show. The thing that really puts me off doing them, and maybe I should just get up and do more of them. I've done the odd few. But it's not so much the thought of failing, but it's the thought I could pay £20 to get on a train and only do a 2-minute spot. Like, it's bad enough travelling for 5 spots.
It was brutal. I kind of hated myself that I even had to do it, but I had to do it. I had to do it in a spiritual way. For some reason, when there's like a gig like that that's so hard, I feel like I have to do it. But that was an interesting thing, because after I won that, I said, that's the last time I'm going to make myself do something just because I was in a real kind of a, not a rut, but like, if I heard a room was bad, I would go do it. And after a while, and then there was other people that were a little more career-minded who would never do it. They'd be like, what's the point of doing that room? I mean, there's no industry there. There's nothing to help my career. Why would I do that room? So they never did those rooms. Whereas I was always like, I kind of felt like you had to walk through a dark alley in stand-up and street fight and become strong before you were worth anything. So... After a while, though, I thought, I'm okay, enough. I've been going like 5 years. I don't need to keep going to rooms just because they're garbage. So after that, I said, that's it. And then I was like, I'm going to try to do what those other guys were doing. Like, I'm going to go to nice clubs and hang out and try to maybe meet an agent or something. And then I did that. And that's what made me stay over here.
I guess the old idiom, well, if it doesn't kill you, it does kind of make you stronger. Because I remember my least favourite gig ever, I was booed off by 112 drunks. And that was awful. It was absolutely crippling. Like, it was the first real horrible death I'd had. Yeah. I mean, I had others, but that was like, it was frightening. Like, it was the first time I'd actually been worried for my safety. But the next night I had a pub where there were 5 drunks, and because I thought, fair enough, 112 drunks can have me, but I'm not going to let 5 have me. So in that way, it did me good. But there's only so many horrible gigs one can take, surely.
Well, I guess, like, if you die like that, the thing that I always think, and maybe this had a lot of impact on me when I was a kid, but like, I remember I can't remember, it was like action. You'd watch like these American action movies, and there might be a scene in the end where like one of the heroes die, like he knows he's going to die. And then there's like that noble Hollywood thing where he accepts it, and instead of kind of crying about it, he takes a cigarette out, puts it in his mouth, lights it up, and then walks into the room and makes some witty quip, and the whole building blows up and he died like cool. I think if you're getting booed by like 112 people, there comes a moment where you, rather than just let it completely destroy you, you got to put that cigarette in your mouth and go, right then.
I guess if you look at it from an outsider's perspective, it is ludicrous, and I guess that's the way to do it. Just find it amusing on one level that you've suddenly, how have you managed to enrage this many people? You're not even a politician.
Yeah.
Like, you're just telling jokes and you've really upset them.
I think that, like, by having that awareness, you can kind of bring the room back, too. Like, I've done that before where they're all hating me so much, and I just kind of, like, stop and just express to them how funny this is, what I'm experiencing right now. You know, I say, guys, put it in my perspective. I mean, this is pretty. When have any of you ever had this experience? You got to dig it from where I'm standing. I'm in a room in another country at a rugby club, and you're all booing me. I mean, this is fantastic.
Obviously, not having your experience, when I'm faced with a tough room, I'm probably a lot more scared than you. But at the same time, there's something really, really liberating about the deck being stacked against you. Because if you're the underdog and you lose, then you're going to lose anyway. But if you turn it around, then that's amazing. I went on at 2 a.m. and I thought they were going to be, like the other night, Friday morning, I went on for this world's longest comedy show ever. And I was really, really... I thought it was going to be terrible. And I thought, well, I'll just chuck myself at it because I couldn't lose because I felt the odds were so stacked against me that it didn't matter what I do, so I might as well just go for it kind of thing. Do you feel like that when you see just a sea of, I don't know, a tough room?
Yeah, like, well, because I remember, like, Phil Kay told me, he said, like, anytime it's not a gig, he likes better. You know, like, the more it becomes like a gig, like a really formal event, the more restricted he feels because they're expecting something now. And you get a different clientele. So they've come to see comedy and they want to see it how they know it. And how they know it is generally from television. So they sit down and it becomes a little more restrictive and the comedian feels a little more pressure, which then makes them a little more inhibited, which can then make them perform a little bit less exciting than they would. Whereas if you just go to a pub, people are like, well, I don't know, man, whatever. The comedian feels less pressure. He's less inhibited. So a lot of times those gigs can be incredibly satisfying because they're like, you're unhinged. You feel free and you feel like you can do anything you want because there's not a lot riding on it. You know, if you just get out of there with all your limbs intact.
You probably actually perform better because I've done terribly in competitions because I was so worried about the outcome, yet I've done far better in a really ramshackle pub gig. And I think if only I could get that same blasé mindset for a comp, as long as I've warmed up and prepared for it and done gigs before, then that would be so much better than me just going, oh, I've got to get through my 5 spot.
Yeah. Well, so what I learned early on with that, the trick is for me, is I had a room in California that I would do that was very no pressure for me. And it was still a comedy club, but it was like loose and they didn't care. And I would get so free there, like it was a pub gig like you're talking about. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I got you go to Hollywood and all of a sudden you're at like the Comedy Store and all those places and you start getting really inhibited and really nervous. And for some reason, you'd have to ask Darwin about this. You naturally decide, like your instinct is to change your act. Completely. So let's say you're a freewheeling guy, like I tend to, work in that way. You go, I suddenly felt like, oh, I better do some jokes, man. I'm in Hollywood now, and then you just bomb. So what the trick is find a really crappy room that is totally like you just feel like
low stakes, open mic, low pressure,
right? And if you have an amazing, where you're just whatever, you're taking risks you'd never take before. If you have a room that you like blow the roof off every time, and because you're just so calm and you're just so everything, so when you go to a big room, just like close your eyes. I used to do this and just tell yourself, your brain, pretend you're about to do that room.
Yeah, because then you'll be comfy. You'll feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean exactly. Do exactly. Like if you go on at an open mic and start making fun of the host because you know him so well, I mean do that at the comedy club, at the most prestige, the Comedy Store. Because I guarantee you, if you go, it's not the room, it's your energy. If you go on, and matter of fact, you'll have even better results if you go into the stricter the environment, especially contests.
Yeah, because I feel like I think I feel sometimes at competitions things are set up to intimidate me. I've got to sign in at a register and I've got to do this, got to do that. And it's just, whereas at a comedy night, I'll turn up half an hour before have a drink or sit around chatting, and then, someone calls my name, I'll go up and do some stuff. Whereas, like, comedy, it's suddenly like a comedy competition. You're at school and they're taking their register again.
Yeah. Well, it's like preset tension. So that's actually good when you realize, like, a comedy competition, the audience may not be able to understand why, but there's a tension in the room. They can just tell. They don't know why. They're like, but it's because the comedians are nervous. There's high stakes. And you get 10 comedians go up, and they're all doing their best shit. And then you're that one guy who goes on like he's not even in a contest. He didn't even care. You'll blow the roof off.
There's that weird contradiction about, if you try too hard, it looks bad. But you've got to put in some effort. There's this weird fine line of, got to try. Obviously, you've got to make an effort, you've got to try. But then being a try-hard is bad.
Yeah, well, you can still be trying without trying. So, like, yeah. So, the trick is to try as hard as you can not to try. Because what you can do is trick yourself by telling yourself, okay, I'm going to, like, totally relax and take a chance on this. And that's still going to be good because of X. So, like, with contests, the thing with a contest is, like, winning is fine, but really you can get a lot out of not winning. If you're funny, like, I've done contests that I lost, and you get people in the audience that I still work for today. Be funny. Be totally uniquely you, funny, and it will carry you because, a lot of times people go, there was this promoter in the room or this TV producer. In 3 years, that guy doesn't even work for Channel 4 anymore. So it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Going back to what you're saying about the Gong Show, watching that video of the Gong Show, that looked like that's where you're happy being amongst all that chaos, like fighting fire with fire. But how do you feel when you get a polite, not aggressive, but quiet, cold audience?
Weird. I did it, yeah. I did a show at the Pleasance last Edinburgh. And someone put me on the Pleasance because they had seen me at the Three Sisters at Maggie's Chamber. And I went on, and it was cool, but it was a little stilted for me because I can do that. I guess you switch into different gears to be funny, but you have certain gears in your arsenal that you don't like, certain suits you don't want to wear. And then they all came to my show that night based on that performance. So I had all these Pleasance people in, and I think that I get weird, like, when I was watching James Acaster's specials, and I'm like, damn, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could come out and do a performance, and maybe that's just me being low on what I do, but I don't do that, I just come out, and it's more of it's a bit of a riskier endeavor. So I think I'm just trying to figure out how to take what I do and make it into a bigger sort of production.
Because it seems like when faced with an audience that's really aggressive, you can chuck it back at them just as hard, and you can kind of, there's energy in the room, and you convert it and make it on your side, and then kind of own the room. Whereas if there's no energy from the crowd in the first place, and, like, I don't know how you inject energy into that room without just, because if you yell at them, they'll just be like, oh God, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird, man. I want to think that I'm, like, at my best when it's all good natured. Like today, it was like everyone was into it and improvising, and they were all happy about it. But I definitely think ever since I was like a teenager, I have a certain ability to handle direct aggression. And people used to, like, try to piss me off because they thought it was funny. But that did piss me off, that they were trying to piss me off. But I remember people around me, I'd be like, why are you guys always, like, kind of poking at me and stuff? They're like, because it's so funny when you, like, react. And I'm like, well, it is annoying me, though. My natural response is to be funny about it. So I don't really like when the room is aggressive. I like when it's up for, winging it and that kind of thing. But, sometimes when they're quiet and watching, that doesn't mean, like, today, in the first, like, 15 minutes, I thought, oh, man. And I actually asked them, I go, you guys are into this, right? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. Because sometimes they're into the free nature of the show. They just might not be, like, jumping in and, like, batting it around. They're just kind of, like, watching it. I feel like when you do an Edinburgh or a Pleasancy type show, it's almost like they're watching you like you're playing some sort of instrument. Like, you know what I mean? you're like
they're there
banging
to
out the
watch them.
clarinet like a pretentious.
But that's what most comics want, isn't it? They just want people to
They
watch
do,
them.
but it freaks me out a little bit. I'm like, I need okay.
You want like prolonged crowd work, it seems.
I want to like let's go. Let's like whip it up a little bit, which it is my job, and I can whip up any audience. I think when I'm doing it right, I can get them going. You know, it just takes a level of like.
That must cause havoc on some bills, though. Like if they settle the room, you put you on in the middle. It's like winding up the being the supply teacher, winding up the kids. Then the teacher comes back and oh god, they're all over the place. Do you get that happen?
Definitely. People hated it. People still hate it. Nobody wants to go after me. Not because I'm scary to follow or because I'm so good or anything like that, but because most comics, some comedians don't care. Other comedians think that it really changes the dynamic of the room. I have had to follow guys who do almost exactly like how I do it. And I just do it. I don't really care. But I think it probably does change the dynamic of the room. I hated to admit it because in America I used to get it more than I do here. I mean, because now you have a break. So people don't care that much. But in America, you go right before the headliner. And I wasn't a headliner back then, so I would do 20, 25 minutes. And I should feel some level of guilt for this. For the amount of guys that came in to just do a nice, easy weekend. They've given up all sort of artistic ambition for comedy. They just want to clock in, do a nice, easy room, get some free chicken wings. And here comes this young, snot-nosed kid doing 30 minutes of crowd work before they have to go headline. And they used to try to throw me off bills almost every weekend.
But then the promoters were. You probably made no secret that was your style, and the promoters were putting you on the bill. So it's somehow their fault, isn't it?
Well, warnings started to be given, and warnings were given to me to maybe not do it. Of course, I would not adhere to those warnings. And the guy that owned the comedy club that I played at every weekend in San Diego was so cool. He liked me a lot, so he would just let me keep doing it. And I would say, guys, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I certainly wouldn't get off stage and go, hey, good luck with that. It's just that was how I did stand up, man. It just evolved like that. But yeah, a lot of guys would get annoyed. But there was another type of guy who didn't get annoyed, and those guys were powerful comics. Those guys would go after me. I thought I was like hot stuff, and they would eviscerate me. You know, not me, but they would like personally. But they would be so good in what they did that it didn't matter what I did. And that's possible, too.
I guess that's the mark of a true headliner, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. It's just like, this kid's been going 3 years. He's learned how to improvise. How exciting. Watch this. Boom. And they would blow me out of the water. And I would go, wow. And I really respected those guys. But then there was the guys who just wanted to clock in. And they were like, I can't do it. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, I hate to admit it. I did change the dynamic of the room. Because I would watch the headliner and it would always made me cringe if somebody heckled him with something that I had said. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they'd go,
oh, you feel it's their fault. It's like when you give someone at school a nickname and then the bullies latch onto it.
I think audiences are smarter than that, but then again, maybe I'm overestimating them. I think an audience knows. Like that always annoys me when someone has such an opaque view of the audience's intelligence. Like, oh, they think we can just crowd work now. No, I think they know that's me. And now here comes you. And they'll give you 2 minutes to go, this is what I do. I tell stories. Awesome. Let's watch stories now. I personally think. But it was always weird because, like, basically what was happening was I moved to Hollywood and I quit my job. I moved to Hollywood and quit my job, which I recommend for anybody. If you're just at the point which you, like, can barely make it. And people advise you against this. I heard someone on a podcast say that's the dumbest thing you could do. No, I disagree. If you're at the point that you can just barely make it, quit. Quit your job, man, and make it on, like, I used to eat beans, was like my diet for like a month, but I was so happy, man. And so I would just do this. I had no money, but I had my rent so low that I could make it work if I did this one club in San Diego every weekend, and I would go back to San Diego every weekend and do it. $25 a spot. I'm talking about it like it was 20 years ago. But it was like 5 years ago.
But doesn't that inhibit any sort of life you could have outside comedy, or does the fact you're living in comparative squalor make you work harder?
Both of those things happen. So living in the squalor makes you work harder, and also, yes, you will have no life. But I might be a bit of an extremist, but
it does seem extreme, is it? Why can't you do something? There must be a middle path, like have a job, where sometimes they'll let you end at 4 so you can go do that gig in goodness knows where and like play the long game.
Yeah, I think the thing with me, though, is that, like, I think that there came a point, like, I was trying to go to school at the same time, and then about 2 or 3 years in, I just went, I don't want a life. I want to do this. This is all I want to do. And so anything that didn't lend itself to that, I was happy to let go. So I was married, that ended. I had a car, crashed that, and now I was free. I didn't have any bills. I didn't have any responsibilities. So, yeah, it wasn't the most graceful way to do it. Again, I watched people do that much less painfully. I watched people have a life and then ease into it. Okay.
Do you not need a life outside of comedy?
I mean, I have one now.
Yeah, because otherwise, what do you talk about on stage?
I mean, I have one now, but, like, this is a life to me. I mean, look at us. We're in Banbury. Like, comedy becomes your life, and you love comedy, so you love your life. I mean, like my girlfriend's a comedian, and the thing is, like, if we went on a holiday, we could go on a holiday. There's something about being with another comedian that doesn't feel like you're missing out. So we could both be like, okay, no gigs. But also, we'd be totally happy to be like, we went to France for 2 weeks and had gigs. It'd be, like, great. But I mean, like, yeah, so I have a life now, but I think in the beginning years, man, you're so fucking into it that whether you like it or not, your life starts to disappear. But it's not a bad thing because you found your life. You know, you found the meaning of your life. That's what it felt like for me in the beginning. When I really got into stand-up, I was like, this is my life. This is everything I've ever wanted. I was totally happy. And you move to LA and you meet, when you go to a big city like that, forget about making it and all that. What really happens and what the best thing is that there is like this Neverland sort of lost children who have all done the exact same thing as you. They've all left their lives and are just completely going for this and letting it engulf their existence. And that's a beautiful thing, man.
Wouldn't that be scary? Because you think, oh God, there's so many people trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do.
Yeah. That's part of the fun. I mean, it is. Yeah, you go to LA. I mean, if you go to a place like Hollywood or New York, I mean, yeah, good God. The first thing that happens is you just realize, Jesus, I'm an even tinier grain of sand on an even bigger beach than I had known. Is that
why you jumped over to England or not? Did that just happen?
No, England just kind of well, yeah, because there's an element of Hollywood that's like, I mean, dude, you're talking about, listen to how I'm talking, right? I'm talking about not making the best business decisions. I'm obviously a more artistic minded, sort of like all zen,
impulsive,
right?
Sort of going to LA, fed up with this life,
right? You talk about Hollywood, that's like zero compunctions whatsoever about this is a business, make money, get fans, however you can. Like, so I wasn't, other than doing those gigs in San Diego, I wasn't really progressing, and I just, because I like comedy so much, I started getting into like I was like, I just started going down YouTube rabbit holes, and you start finding all these comedians in Britain and shit, and I was like, wow, what's that all about? And so I had all these people I liked, and then it just naturally, I met somebody who was English, and I was like, I gotta try it. And I went back and forth for a while, and then I just ended up, once I got an agent over here, and she booked me like a year in advance of gigs, and I, like you said, started to make a living as a comedian, I just went, what else is there? And everybody in LA was like, oh, yeah. And even knowing that they could do that, they were like, there's still that fame drug. There's that, like, and that's why you've got to come to terms with that, because you got to sort that out. Because I was faced with that. It was like, stay in LA, make no money, not be a comedian, but one day maybe get a big opportunity that makes you kind of a quote unquote success, right? And then something happens. Or go be a stand-up, get paid for it, and live that life now. And in the end of the day, I was like, that's the life I wanted. That was what I wanted. So in a weird way, as much as I think, I've been going a long time, I kind of made it in like 5 years. Because if you think about it, when I started, all I wanted to do was do stand-up, get any kind of money for it, and not have to work. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted.
Because it seems like it's better to kind of live a dream than have one, I think, in one way. And it's like, it seems very strange that people use, without being purist and going on about art, I think it's very odd that people want to use comedy as a stepping stone to get on TV, when comedy can be the most amazing fun. But then to take it as part of a plan just seems like you're going to miss out on all the fun.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, there's like in Hollywood, it's like fame. there was a thing about, and this is, forget Hollywood, this is everywhere. It's in Britain too. You have to come to terms with the fame monster, okay? And the allure of that. What is that? Because that, if you have to ask yourself, because that's the crossroad I was at. I was like, I have an opportunity to get paid and be a comic, but be pretty much off the grid, right? No pun intended, right? The podcast. But then or stay in LA. And then I was like, for what though? And then I was like, oh, it's fame. To get famous. To be a thing. Because people have a deluded idea that if they're anointed that fame, other people will then see them as worthy. And they won't. And you'll never feel worthy. That's how you get famous people who end up miserable. Because they thought fame would do that to them. As far as I can tell, I've never been famous. But as far as I can tell, that's how you end up that dude in track pants who's got all the movie posters that he's been in surrounding his room as he dies on a handful of Valiums.
Because I wonder if it just becomes like, what's the old cliche? Keeping up with the Joneses, where, I've been in all these movies and I'm really famous, but there's always someone more famous. And if I bumped into someone in the supermarket, they might not recognise me. So how famous am I really? There's no lid on fame, is there? You can't have enough.
Well, I could be wrong, but I've always seen a division. Like I said, there's this other. It's like in particle physics, how you have the particle and the antiparticle. My antiparticle is the guy who wants power. See, I always wanted to be great. I just wanted to be great. I respected and strived for greatness. I wanted to be a great comedian. Whereas I noticed other people seem to want, and I don't think they realize it, they want power. They want power. Greatness is a byproduct. They just want to be good enough to get the power. And I don't know, but see, some sort of quest for power would probably help my career. But I don't really, you know what I mean? They quest that. They want prestige because they want, I don't know what they think is going to happen. I mean, you're going to get seats at restaurants.
I'll take that. That'd be nice.
I mean, but at the end of the day, what is that if you don't have the mental solitude?
Yeah.
So to me, the whole thing with LA was, I just basically looked at it and I went, I made a choice right there. I said, I will never sacrifice life experience for, the hope of some sort of career gain. Because for me, a guy from San Diego who I always wanted to go to Europe and I never saw any path to do that. I was like, I have an opportunity to just live in Europe, live in Britain, work and the life experience of that was to me priceless. And the alternative was, but it's smarter to stay in LA and just keep walking down Sunset Boulevard and get some auditions and then people.
But isn't there a middle way? Because I've seen a lot of comics. They'll go on a panel show for a few series, or they'll do something like a reality show or something on TV, and then they'll use it as a vehicle to sell bums, get bums on seats, so they can do what they actually want, which is to go back to do stand up, but at a higher level. There's lots of. Paul Foot went on Nevermind the Buzzcocks. He now doesn't do that anymore and does what he wants, which is touring stand-up. So it's almost like you go and do the mainstream stuff in order for you to do the more arty stuff that you actually want to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. That's like those opportunities came to him on his path, which is fine. I'm talking about there was
you're on about a comic who has a 5-year plan kind of thing. Is that the more what you're on about?
No, I'm just saying priorities. Like I said, there were people in LA who wouldn't leave even though they had nothing going because the hope to get the thing. So they're sacrificing life experience. It's like, dude, you want to go to Britain and just travel and and it's like, no, I should stay in LA because I might get famous. And it's like, that's a mistake to me because I'm much more.
I guess the college they'd say, oh, don't be a quitter, but I guess it's not, is it? It's just following a different way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, it's about enjoying your life. I mean, what's the point of life if it's just about this end result? But if you listen to yourself and you do that, You know, and that decision, everyone was like, "You're crazy."
And
it
doing
worked
things
out.
because you think you should do them, not because you want to do them. There's something crappy about having to do that.
Don't ever do anything because you think because you're told you should do it. I mean, I take that to the extreme. Like I said tonight, anytime someone tells me I have to do something, I'm like, I don't think so. I think that's just an accepted thing. You know, there's so many things that we accept, and you just start to go, well, why? You know, people are like, well, you have to. You have to. Why do you have to do that? You don't have to. You actually don't. You don't have to. And there's a bunch of things. I love doing, like, the whole thing when I canceled all my social media. That people were like, that's suicide. My career didn't suffer at all. If anything, I started getting more work. I don't know how. You know, maybe it's just because I was moving around the circuit more. Leaving LA, people were like, you can't, man, you can't.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but I think if you couldn't start without social media, if you were starting today, like, I find all my open mics and all my gigs, like, on Facebook. Without it, I think if my Facebook got deleted now, I don't know how I'd get gigs. If you were starting now, do you think you could do it still?
I think you can do anything. You'll figure it out.
But it'd be so laborious, wouldn't it? If there's you'd miss out on all the opportunities going, help, we need a replacement in Croydon tonight.
If, let's say you didn't want to use Facebook anymore and you're starting as a comedian, you could figure out a way to do it because you've made a choice. It's about choices, right? So you say, I don't want to go on social media because it affects my mental health. So I want to be zen. I want to be off the grid. I want to stop using electronic devices. I want to be like this organic, I don't know, it's just a hippie fucking thing.
Yeah.
But I also want to be a comic. You'll figure out how to do it. It's just going to be hard. You'd have to figure out, and the world won't make it easy for you because they're all going to go, dude, we're on Facebook. But if you wanted, you could get a list of all the gigs. Look, I'm not saying it's. I don't recommend it.
No. And I think it's. I can see how you've been able to do it at this stage, but I think backing out of social media once you've had it, and it is quite. It's. I don't know. In some way, when people quit social media, on one level, it annoys me because how can it affect you that much? But at the same time, it's kind of empowering the way you've just gone. Oh, well, just because everyone does it doesn't mean I have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I mean, but also, I never used to use it. I mean, I'm young enough to have lived through. It's not like it's a new thing for me. Like I lived through several stages of it, and I never used any platform. It's just not who I am. And I think that because of that, it seems to work naturally for me because I'm being honest with myself. It's not like I'm dying to get on it. I never liked it. I mean, it's just not me. I don't like think, oh, I need to tweet this. I need to like. Maybe as a promotional tool, I don't know.
Maybe as a self-delusion. Maybe I just like going on Facebook and Twitter because, like, a part of me can just pretend to be famous. Maybe I think there's a big part of that with social media.
Yeah, everybody does that. That's gross. That's the fame monster. Everybody wants to be famous, and it's not. It's not like it's weird. Of course you do, but you got to sort that out, man.
Yeah.
You can snuff that flame. You know, you can get it at least down to a little pilot light. Because, dude, when I go on it, this is what I never understood when I was on it. The amount of egregious, embarrassing self-promotion, faux fame-mongering that would happen and go unaccounted for. I was like, how do you even post that and sleep at night? You know, like, smashed it, meh, like some completely arrogant boast, badly couched in a like factual
false
statement. Yeah,
modesty.
Like isn't this hotel funny that I'm staying at that the comedy club paid for because I'm doing well? You know, like wait, well, what? Like, so you're pretending to talk about the hotel being haunted, but you're really like posting that you're at a gig doing this hotel thing and all getting paid work and shit.
Yeah, this is one of these things. I agree with it in principle, but in practice, it's all just part of a game, isn't it? To get more bums on seats, and it's just another way you can spin things. It's like misquoting reviews slightly, so maybe someone else will buy a ticket. Isn't it just part of that game?
Yeah, and I think that I don't know. There's like a level of honesty I think that I like to uphold between people. That sounds like I'm being like so self-righteous, but I'm just saying like. I can't self-promote without being aware that I'm self-promoting and calling attention to the self-promotion. So it's like I can't just go, awesome gig tonight, without also writing like...
So would you not put up a poster saying, come to my show?
No, I do that, because that's just like, hey, I'm here, come if you want.
Isn't that the same kind of thing? And isn't that just being famous quote.
No, that's like saying, hey, I'm doing a gig. If you're into it, come on down.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, you got to know where it is, but it's not like going, taking a photo of yourself with a celebrity. And I don't know. I think it sucks. Like, dude, maybe I'm just neurotic, but I can physically feel the energy of an experience being sucked out of it if I take the time to then turn it into content. See, this is the problem I've noticed. My brother's got a little kid, right? And I was talking to him and he goes, I'm going to have a YouTube channel and I'm going to sell all this merchandise. And I went, well, there it is. That's what's happening now.
I remember you saying this on another podcast. Who are you talking to? Jay Handley?
Yeah, did I? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that and I was thinking, if that kid, what if that kid had said, I think, wouldn't it have been so much nicer if that kid said, oh, I want to make really nice videos and show them people, I want to make interesting films, rather than, because he just went from, it sounds like the kid has skipped the fun, creative bit of making a video to just gone to the blooming merchandise.
Yeah.
And surely the only point of merch is so you can afford to do more cool stuff, and he's just gone from A to C.
The thing that I was thinking is, I'm going to say this. It's not necessarily that he's like, oh, no creativity. He may still be creative. But what that showed me was that he was talking about the creativity, but with a blend of business. Like business. You know what I'm saying? Everything these days, and we're told like it's a good thing. There's a blurred line between art and business now. Everything is content. Everything has to be monetized. Everything's got a price tag. Every experience you have is content for your Instagram feed. Everything you make has to be packaged in a certain way in order to sell it right. And you're applauded for that. You've got to do it. You got to get it out to your fans and you got to do that. So we are expected to be businessmen now. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people see no line between it. It's like it's good business. People talk about it. I was watching a documentary of these rappers and they talk about being businessmen. I'm a businessman. I'm not a businessman. I'm a fucking artist. Let the businessmen be businessmen. There is no art to business, by the way. All this Steve Jobs shit where they try to wrap it up like, oh, he's such a visionary. That's where the line started to get blurred. And it became like, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not some sort of like necessity to it, but people need to be aware of the mix of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I guess if sometimes you just got to make stuff because it's art, not just because you get a monetary return, because money is only one sort of value.
Yeah, or just seeing a delineation between it. But I just thought it was interesting. Like he was saying, I'm going to have merch. So it's like, at his age, what's being fed to him?
And what's validating his art? The fact he can sell merch off the back of it, not the fact it's art.
Well, I'm just saying, he's obviously seeing the two. He's a kid, so he's impressionable. And I'm not saying that he's like bad. I'm saying by showing, because look, when you're a kid, I obviously grew out of stuff, you know? You develop principles and integrity when you're older. So as a kid, though, you're just spitting what's being fed to you. Obviously, what's being shown to him is a blend of business and art. So he hasn't grown up enough to, if he chooses to see the difference. You know what I mean? So, because that's the way everything is packaged now.
I think it has become very extreme in the case of like art and business kind of merging. But hasn't it always been like that? You'd never have comedy shows. They are a gimmick to sell beer. Surely that's why they're there. There aren't many comedy clubs that are just there for the sake of art.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, the blend of art and business has been around forever. But I mean, I would say arguably with comedy clubs, to bring it back to what we were talking about in the beginning, the comic has always naturally come to loggerheads with the comedy club, because that's the great battle between the comedian and comedy club, is the comedian has to make concessions because the comedy club wants to sell booze. And that's where the alternative movement came from. You know, where people went, fuck these comedy clubs, man. Let's just go do this. Let's just go do this without an aim to sell drinks, without all this criteria we have to go under. So I think art, what I'm saying is, to me, I can't get rid of the fact that art and business are natural nemesis. And what I'm hearing now is that people are going, no, they're friends. They exist together. And I'm just not.
But sure, you're making a living off art, though, aren't you? So you're a businessman in that respect.
I'm not saying business isn't a necessity, but I think you should view it as a. I was almost going to say it's a necessary evil, yeah. But in a way it is. It is. It's not like a beautiful, awesome thing that is an art in itself. You know what I mean? And I think that I trust someone more who's had to figure out the business side, come to terms with it, make peace, and then push his art through it in an interesting way, rather than someone who just started thinking business is awesome and here we go, baby, because the art's going to be diluted to me. Someone like Stuart Lee, it's like
they show you the compromise in a way.
Yes. It's like I can tell, you know, there was a great many years of creation, and then the conduit is the business, and they almost have to figure out, like you said, with posting a poster on social media, like that, you just have to figure out at some point, like, you can have a piece of art, but you got to hang it on a wall somewhere. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Does that make
you made
sense?
me, yeah, but you made me think of something. The small thing that really annoys me is the misuse of the term creative. You call marketing execs creative.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they've got a talent, it's a skill, but if you asked them to write a poem or do a picture, they've probably never done that in their life.
Art is about intent, okay? It's about the passion behind it. Anything can be art. If someone made this coffee cup with, like, they love coffee cups, and they just made it with so much heart and blood and sweat and tears, and it's all they ever want to do, and they painstakingly made it, that coffee cup's a piece of art because you can feel what's behind it. Whereas this coffee cup is made solely and deadly with the purpose of moving hot liquid for this corporation into my mouth.
Yeah, and
so
it's got a
that's
big
what
brand
that's
on
what
it.
you get from it, right? That's why when Marcel Duchamp hangs a urinal on a wall, it became art. Not because it was on the wall, but because I can feel some vibe coming from that. He put that on the wall.
He's buggered art, though, hasn't he? He's made art really silly. I think he proved a very, very good point, but it's opened the floodgates for, like, you wander around. It's like going off on a tangent here, but walking around the Tate Modern now,
Yeah.
I see. I'm no art expert. I haven't studied art. I don't do art other than stand up, but it seems to be a game of creative piss taking, and the purity of making something.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I think there's an element of that. There's still intent behind it, but I'll be honest with you, when I walk around the Tate Modern, I don't like the intent. I
feel I'm being sneered at. They're going to see, let's see how much crap we can put in this room. And they still go, oh yes, isn't this artistic?
Yeah, but I think they've missed the point, because they're taking the Duchamp thing and going like, yeah, doesn't this bug you? And it's like, to me, that's not what Duchamp was. Duchamp was like, he put, by the way, I think I'm butchering that, Duchamp, but like,
I think it's Duchamp, but I could be saying it wrong. I'm dyslexic,
I
you're
say-
American. Like, this is never going to work.
Duchamp. I say carte blanche and shit. Like, the Americans just butcher shit, right? Like, that's my raison d'etre. That's my raison d'etre. But like his whole thing was when he put something on the wall, there was like an element of like, fuck off behind it, that when I walk around the Tate now, I can hear like some German guy going, isn't it silly? It's a chair. And I'm like, you're missing the point, man, because you've just put that there to be annoying. That's almost as dead to me as just some piece of corporate art.
Because he was kicking against the very ornate formulaic style of art, and it was reactionary, whereas like now it's just that everyone's playing a game of let's put silly things in rooms.
Yeah, and to me, I feel the triviality of that intent behind it. So it's like, the thing, I remember I watched this TED Talk once, and I was confused about my style of comedy because I was like, I don't really do anything up there. You know, like you watched an hour today and people would go, what was that? He didn't say anything. He just mucked about. But I realized there was a girl there was a 4-year-old girl who was doing replicas of Jackson Pollocks, and they were selling for like hundreds of thousands of pounds. And you can look this TED Talk up. It's called it's about what is art, meaning of art. It's one of the best I've ever seen. They found out that her dad was helping her paint. So her paintings went to zero worth. They're just garbage. And what this guy deduced from that was that art, what you're buying into, is, like I said, the passion behind it. It doesn't matter of the technical ability. It doesn't matter at all about that. It's what's behind it. It's the energy. Like John Cage is a piano player, and he has a track on iTunes that's just total silence, because he was experimenting with silence. So he goes on to play the piano, sits there.
That's taking the mick as far as I'm concerned. That's weird.
But the thing is, it's not for me because...
That sounds like the sort of stuff we were railing against in the Tate Modern a moment ago.
But it's not, because he was the first guy to do something like that.
Right.
And anytime
So he was Deschamps in
this is
many
what I'm
respects,
saying.
yeah.
When something becomes as stuffy as classical music did, something like that is needed to say, hey, you can do whatever you want. Don't forget that. So when I go on stage and I just riff, you could look at it and go, oh, he's not. But to me, that's why I've called my show this year is called Love Song for the Viciously Ambitious. And the whole point of the show is that, like, as this sounds pretty arrogant, but it's like, I think, like, if you're taking everything really seriously and you're one of those people questing for power, you need a show like that to just go and go, hey, also, there's no rules. You can literally do whatever you want. So to me, going on stage and having 0 point, riffing about whatever I want and playing around is a Jackson Pollock splash on a painting. It's like you look at it and you go, there's no technical ability there. He's not doing setups. He's not doing punchlines. But it's like the energy behind it. It's about the intent. It's about the passion. That's what you're responding to, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
So what I'm saying was with, like, marketing and all that stuff is it has happened, but a lot of times if the intent,
You've got to be aware of the contradiction of business, I guess.
yeah, because if I smell that the intent is to sell or the intent is anything other than your emotional expression, it's dead to me. And I can smell it and you can feel it as an audience. So when someone ends their comedy set by going, follow me on Twitter, I feel like you've just cut the nuts off it. Because I just go, oh man, you've left the gig now. You've taken a flying saucer out of emotional expression and you've entered into, like, the realm of your mind that thinks about bills and finance and mortgages.
Yeah, no, I don't like that for another reason, just because it breaks the flow of a comedy set. And also, if a punter is that impressed by the comic that they'll remember their name, they'll find them after, and then you can give them a business card. And I think that means so much more.
I believe that.
I don't know what the site that, like, I'd love to know on average, comics that say follow me on Twitter, how many people actually will get their phone out and do it. I'd like to know that.
This is the great battle in me. Because I'm not totally convinced that doesn't work. It might. So there you go. That's always happening inside of me is business tactics clearly are proven to work, man. You look at, like, manufacturing, they clearly work. So it's like, but I side more with what you said. I feel like blow it out of the water, if you want to have social media, great. I'm not against it. Like, for people
I'd feel a bit arrogant saying it. I mean, maybe if I was a more famous comic, I'd think I could get away with it.
But I almost feel like it's a good way to get yourself as good as you have to be. Like, get so good that you don't have to tell them to follow you. They're fucking following you after. So just do that. Blow it out of the water.
And you got to build an audience. You got to build an audience bit by bit, haven't you? I guess it's. Anyway,
so those things
you're not going to miss your train to Birmingham, are you?
No. What time is it?
It's 4:00. So I don't want
no, but I was just thinking we've probably...
Yeah, no.
We've probably
would it be ironic if you plugged your website?
No, I don't mind doing that. See, I don't mind plugging the website, because this is a sit-down conversation. Yeah, if you go to russellhicks.co.uk, sign the mailing list.
Awesome. No, this has been wicked.
Thank you very much, man. So, anyway, I am a total recluse, and I'll be in a cave near you. So look for no posters or promotion whatsoever.
This is the Stand and Deliver Comedy Podcast with Rhodders.
That was Russell Hicks, the longest interview I've done on this podcast to date. But I reckon it was worth every minute. You can't have short conversations with Russell. It just doesn't happen. You just end up talking about this and that and everything. And we'd probably still be there now, debating the evils of Facebook and Twitter, had he not had to get on a train to Birmingham to do a gig. I urge you, go check out his website, russellhicks.co.uk, and have a listen to his podcast. It's called Off the Grid. It keeps me company while I'm travelling up and down to gigs and to work and things. Well worth a listen. Right, a couple of odds and ends to tidy up. I'm going to tell you what's coming up at the Stand and Deliver Comedy Club this month. Our next show is on Thursday the 12th, so in a couple of days' time. Get your tickets now. Facebook.com/Stand and Deliver Comedy Night. The headliner is Paul McCaffrey. He's been seen on Russell Howard's Good News and all sorts of other TV programmes. He's absolutely incredible. And it's hosted by Matt Hudson, a musical comic who's played the club before and is excellent, and he's also been featured on Soccer AM as well, and there's a whole lineup of great support acts, including Lucas Dolson, Fred Ferenczi, and Sean Doty. It's going to be great fun. And also we're doing a very special one-off show on Saturday the 21st. It's Stand and Deliver's Saturday Special. It's a slice slightly different format to the usual Thursday night show. It's headlined by Simon Kane, who will be performing his hour-long Edinburgh Fringe show, Sex, Drugs and Other Things I Never Do. Simon Kane's a fantastic act. He's headlined the club before, and he's probably the comedian that I've known the longest on the circuit. I saw his Edinburgh show last year, and it was fantastic, so I can't wait to see what he's done with this one. And I will be emceeing / hosting the night, and there's also support from Fiona Ridgewell and Morgan Rees. So it's an absolutely stellar lineup, and it's on a Saturday night. Tickets available right now. Go book them. Two very, very different shows, so you could go to both of them. Now, before I go, I'm going to just rattle through some of the highlights from my own gig diary, just in case you've liked some of my preamble and post-amble and think, well, I'd like to see him say some more stuff only in person. On Saturday, July the 21st, as I just mentioned, I'm emceeing the Stand and Deliver Comedy Club's Saturday special. That's going to be great fun. And then on Thursday, July the 19th, I'm headlining White Hart Comedy at the White Hart in Stoke Newington. Full lineup as well there for you to watch. And let's fast forward a couple of weeks now. I've got a big announcement. I will be going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, the mecca of comedy that it is. In fact, I think this announcement deserves an over-the-top drum roll. I can reveal to you that on the 20th of August until the 26th of August, I will be running my show called Mirth in the Morning, every morning that week at 11:10 in the loft at the Counting House. It's going to be great fun. I know 11:10 is the crack of dawn for Edinburgh, but it'll be worth setting your alarm for. It will set you up nicely for the rest of the day. It's me hosting and some of my favourite acts, and it's a different lineup every day. I've got some real surprises, some amazing things booked. Not going to tell you just yet, but I can't wait to reveal to you who some of these people are. It's going to be very, very exciting. More information on that and all the other gigs I just mentioned, go to Rhodders.com, RHODDERS.com. All the gigs and more are listed there. And also go buy tickets for the Stand and Deliver Comedy Club, Facebook.com/Stand and Deliver Comedy Night. Click the big blue book now button to book your tickets for the next couple of shows. Right, that's pretty much it. Thanks very much for listening. This is Rhodders signing out for the Stand and Deliver Comedy Podcast, Episode 7.